Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN, presented right here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Thanks, as always, for taking the time to hang out on this Monday. A lot to get to on this show. And then there were two. That's right, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams playing in Super Bowl 56 at SoFi, where the Rams will be the visiting team. We are going to break down yesterday's action in the NFL, the come-from-behind win from the Bengals, the come-from-behind win from the Los Angeles Rams yesterday. Two phenomenal games again, I thought. I mean, the last 6 games in the NFL playoffs have been fantastic. They've been awesome. They've been back and forth. They've been decided on the last second, couple overtime games. I mean, I think Twitter would have broke yesterday if the Chiefs scored in overtime on their opening possession after losing the coin. Oh, yeah, well, they lost the coin toss, right? I mean, well, I guess they won it, but it was Cincy who called it the wrong way and got a defensive stop and found a way to win at Arrowhead despite being down 21-3. It was looking like an absolute blowout. And I know a lot of people are sitting here today and last night blaming everything on Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. What the heck was Mahomes doing in the second half? I hear you. I get it. I mean, he did not look good, but we got to give some credit to the Cincinnati Bengals for that comeback yesterday, and Joe Burrow looking to make history in the NFL. Nobody has ever won the Heisman and then the national championship and then a Super Bowl. And to get to the Super Bowl in 2 years, it's remarkable. I know they heard on the broadcast yesterday, or they were talking about it on the broadcast. I heard it. I'm sure you guys did as well watching the game on CBS, and they were saying no former first overall pick had ever taken their team to the Super Bowl within 2 years. I know Big Ben had did it before, but he wasn't the first overall pick. I mean, yeah, they were kind of cherry picking that stat, but Joe Burrow and the Bengals, the Bengals were a 4-win team last year, 4 wins. And they were the worst team in the NFL just 2 years ago. The worst team in the NFL. It's a remarkable story. I absolutely love it. Joe Burrow, as a Ohio guy, just grew up a couple hours away from Cincinnati. And I've been following the Bengals for a couple of years, pretty closely, maybe closer than than the average football fan, just because I was helping produce Hear That Podcast, Growlin' over at The Athletic with Paul Daniel Jr., who was on this show a couple weeks ago talking about Cincinnati and Joe Burrow, and Jay Morrison of The Athletic, and just seeing the highs and the lows. And I remember hearing everything over the past couple of years. Does Burrow even want to go to Cincinnati? Do they even bother to take him with that first overall pick? Should they acquire a bunch of picks? Will Burrow deny going to Cincy? And then the following year, well, should they take Penei Sewell with that 5th overall pick? They probably need to protect Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow looked pretty good yesterday. I think he was only sacked once. And Jamar Chase has been awesome, and T. Higgins has been awesome, and he was great yesterday too. So I think a remarkable story in Cincinnati. They were 120-1 to win the Super Bowl heading into the regular season. And just last week on this show, we talked about the value with them at 15-1. Yesterday was a great day. I'm not going to lie. It was an awesome day. We were on Cincy to cover. They won the game. We were on the 49ers to cover. They hung around as well. We had some props that hit. If you were just attacking touchdown props, if you were taking the chalk, you had a great day as well. Kelsey, touchdown. Hill, touchdown. Chase, touchdown. Debo, touchdown. Cup, 2 touchdowns, right? I mean, they all hit. Everyone hit touchdowns. We've been talking about Odell Beckham Jr. a lot on this show. He had a phenomenal day as well. We'll get to him in just a little bit, but Tino's going to drop by in a few moments. We're going to recap all the action from yesterday. We'll take an early look at the Super Bowl. Of course, we got 2 weeks to really break this down. Cincinnati opens up as 4-point dogs. I'm already on them. I like them. Not going to lie. I'm on them already. And when I came in here last Monday, I was on them right away, and I was on San Fran right away. I feel pretty comfortable taking them and talking to you guys about San Francisco or about Cincinnati right off the hop. And I know it's going to be really tough to, slow down that pass rush with the Rams, and it's going to be a phenomenal football game. But I think 4 points is too much. I really do. I think that this is it's going to be a classic. I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl. I mean, there's the number 1 team and the number 2 team that run 11 personnel more than anybody in the NFL. 1 running back, 3 wide receiver sets, the Rams and the Bengals. I mean, there's weapons galore on both sides. It should be highly entertaining. We're also going to talk about some of the coaching changes that have happened in the NFL. We got Brian Daboll heading to New York to head coach the Giants, leaving Buffalo. Well, of course, we'll get Tino's thoughts on that. Josh McDaniels leaves the Pats again. Did he ever leave? I mean, kind of, for a moment. He's going to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders until he backs out. Maybe he backs out again. Maybe he gets cold feet. Maybe he pulls like whatever he did to the Indianapolis Colts a couple of years ago. Maybe he pulls a Tom Brady, retires and then unretires in like an hour. What was that yesterday? I think he's going to retire. We'll talk a little bit about that too on this show. But today isn't about Tom Brady. It's not about Tom Brady. It's about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals and Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams, 2 former first overall picks heading to the Super Bowl. And one of them's going to win and become the 9th first overall pick to win the Super Bowl. Again, both teams coming from behind. Fantastic stuff. 27-24 for Cincinnati, 21-3, up 11 points. I thought the turning point, and can it be a turning point? The final play of the first half, can that be the turning point of the game? I thought it was. I thought that KC got a little greedy. They got a little cocky. They had a chance to go up 14 at home to get the ball back to start the second half. And what was that play call? What was that? What was it? Screen pass over to Tyreek Hill, not even taking a shot inside the end zone. I credit to the Bengals and some of the adjustments that they made in the second half. A lot of, dropping 8 back into coverage and not only doubling. Like, you always hear that. How can you double Kelsey? Who do you pick? Kelsey or Hill? How do you double both? They doubled both. They blanketed both. It had a safety high. I mean, respect to what the Bengals did. Yes, this is a little bit on Andy Reid, maybe being stubborn and not running the football, or Patrick Mahomes maybe just running around a little bit too much, trying to extend plays instead of throwing the ball away a couple times late in the fourth quarter there. Settling for a field goal they were basically right there at the end zone. I mean, that was a crazy collapse, but again, credit to Cincinnati here. They went in and they beat Tennessee, a number 1 seed on the road, and then they beat Kansas City, a number 2 seed on the road. This is the same team that lost to the Bears earlier in the year when Joe Burrow looked brutal, threw a couple picks. I think he had 3 picks in that game, a couple pick sixes. The same team that lost to the Jets and then got spanked by the Browns the following week, and they are here in the Super Bowl. And for the Rams, think about their path, going all in over the past couple of years, trading 6 first-round picks since 2018. They don't have a first-round pick until 2024. Getting Matthew Stafford, getting Von Miller, getting Odell Beckham Jr., and now they are here despite a couple, very questionable head coaching challenges by Sean McVay yesterday. I talked about the turning point in Kansas City being maybe the end of that first half. I think the turning point yesterday was probably, there's a couple things. Of course, Tart drops that ball, but there's still 10 minutes left in that game. Stafford underthrew whoever the heck he was throwing that ball to. He had a couple, throws that were just a little off. And I think, he's just battling through injuries. He doesn't look like the same, doesn't have that same deep ball. There was a couple drops for him, but I thought, the turning point in that game was when San Fran was at midfield and the 3rd and 2, and, Jusic looked like he fumbled it, and then they were going to punt it away. And then, between the commercial break or, McVay decides to challenge, he thought that, there was a fumble there. And then, he loses that challenge, the second challenge that he lost. And then San Fran is in a situation where, well, they put their offense back on the field. And Kyle Shanahan, I'm thinking, wow, they're going to go for that. They're probably thinking like, all right, fine. You want to challenge this? I've had a couple minutes to think about this a little bit more. I found a play that I like on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, whatever it was around midfield. And they decided to punt that ball away. And again, I don't want to sit here and talk about, Jimmy Garoppolo and just fire shots at him all the time. But what have we said all year long on this show with Jimmy G? That he was going to be the reason that this Niners team wasn't going to be able to take the next step. There's a reason that the Niners traded all their picks and moved up to get Trey Lance. Now, I don't think Trey Lance is ready. I don't know if he's going to be ready next year. I can take the L for that. I thought heading into the season we would see Trey Lance. I thought he would be the answer for San Fran, but credit to Garoppolo all year for hanging around, playing good football. Now people are going to be all over him, of course, with under 2 minutes left. 80 yards to march down the field and a 2-minute drill to get to the Super Bowl, and he can't find a way to get it done. And, at the end of the day, he's just a tough guy to trust. Like, he's just, a lot of San Fran's wins have been him not dropping back and throwing the ball 40-plus times, relying on their defense, having a strong run game. Deebo Samuel was great again yesterday. I think that this is probably it for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he maybe jumps on a new team and maybe he's a starter. Maybe he's a starter in Pittsburgh. Certainly better than Mason Rudolph. Remains to be seen what's going to happen in San Fran, but people are going to be really hard on Jimmy Garoppolo. I get it. I understand it. They're going to be really hard on Jimmy G. But at the end of the day, when the game's tied in the fourth quarter, who do you want, right? You want Matthew Stafford or you want Jimmy G? And unfortunately for Jimmy G and San Fran fans, that's it. That may be it for Jimmy G. Tino's in here next. We'll talk about the 3 stars when we bring him in. I got some 3 stars. You guys know who they are, but we'll recap everything. We'll also dive into some of the coaching changes and take an early look at the preview as well. I'd love to hear from you guys hanging out on our FTN YouTube page. Remember to smash the like button. You guys ever have any questions, any comments? Would love to hear them. I'd like to get your early thoughts on what you guys think about the line. I think it's a little high for a total at 50 and a half. I think it's dropped down already, 49.5. And as we mentioned off the top, it is the Rams that are favored by 4 points here, playing in their own stadium, the first team in NFL history to host an NFC Championship and then host the Super Bowl. But they are the road team. It's going to be a little weird, right, to see the Rams. The Bengals are going to walk into that stadium in the locker room and be in the Rams locker room. And the Rams are going to be in the visiting locker room. There's a lot of cool storylines here too, right? Burrow and Stafford, the first overall picks. And then also Zach Taylor and Sean McVay. Zach Taylor was on McVay's coaching staff just 3 years ago as the quarterback coach. He was labeled in Cincinnati, honestly, when they hired him. And I know this from that podcast, hear that podcast, Growlin, producing that, as the next Sean McVay, as the bright mind, the offensive coach. And he's done some good things. But it should be, I think it's going to be a phenomenal Super Bowl. We're bringing Tino here next. We'll recap yesterday, and we'll talk a lot about this Bengals and Rams Super Bowl. We got a lot of days to talk about this as well, plus some NHL picks here on Mean Streets. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney, as we're bringing Tino Rodriguez and the artist Mark Harrison. We do not want to talk about the Mavericks losing to the Orlando Magic yesterday. Please, can we not talk about that at all? I did not need that to come up this early in my day. Tino, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. I got to see Brian Daboll introduced as the Giants head coach this morning. He had some jokes, so hopefully I can follow up with some dad jokes of my own. But no, good morning. I'm ready to talk about this Bengals game because I want to talk about something that no one will talk about. And I think it's time to give flowers where people won't give flowers. But we do have the 3 stars of the night, if you want to start there with yesterday.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's give some love to these guys. Of course, you know, it is led by Cooper Kupp. Again, just another game. We talked last week about if he had one 100-yard game, one more 100-yard game, he would pass Michael Irvin for the most 100-yard games in an NFL season. That's number 13 on the year for him. 11 grabs, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like, my old man is a Niners fan, and he texted me yesterday. We weren't able to get together to watch that game, and he just said, why is Cooper Kupp open all the time? Like, he's open all the time. And Russell Wilson said this on the Manningcast a couple weeks ago, that the guy is just always open. He runs terrific routes. He had one drop, which he would have brought to the house, I think. I mean, terrific game again from Cooper Kupp, 11 grabs, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns. How about Odell Beckham Jr.? How about his first 100-yard game since 2019, a span of 33 games? This guy hadn't had a 100-yard game. What? He was great yesterday, and I thought one of the turning points was that big grab along the sidelines and then the bonehead penalty, the 15-yard penalty, which kind of set them up and changed field position a little bit. So Odell shows up here. I left the KC boys off. I mean, Tyreek Hill has a good game and a touchdown, but he was invisible in the second half. And then Travis Kelce had the touchdown, had a big game as well. But I got to give some love to T. Higgins. I thought he was a difference maker for Cincinnati, especially in the first half. You know, The Bengals, I thought Tino made some adjustments in that second half, certainly on defense. They also made some adjustments with Jamar Chase to try to get him open and loose and move him around a little bit. But T. Higgins was all over the place. There was a big play which set them up in the field goal. It was like a 1st and 5, in which he kind of took it from the right side of the field to the left side of the field, cut it into the middle, and his breakaway speed was on full display. He's just one of the guys that nobody really talks about, right? It's always Jamar Chase, Jamar Chase, Jamar Chase. But when the Bengals took their Burrow in the first round, their second pick in the second round was T. Higgins, and he's been great over the 2 years in Cincinnati. So there's your 3 stars. I mean, what can you say about Cooper Kupp? It's just another day at the office. I think if you could vote MVPs, like if you didn't vote, if you just waited and voted, I mean, he's the MVP. He's the last man standing out of all the guys. I mean, he deserves credit, man.
Well, you could have made that case, at the end of the season, too. And it's also interesting that he came up on 3rd down, too, right? It's not even that he's always open. He's open when they need him most. It's like, who else are they going to go to? I want to talk about this because it'll send me on a tangent, but my star of the night is the Cincinnati Bengals defense. I'm tired of nobody giving them credit. Nobody has said anything positive about the Bengals defense this entire time. It's Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow, Joe. I get it. He's smoking cigars. He's cool Joe, the new Broadway himself, right? New Broadway Joe here. But the Bengals defense held him to 3 points in the second half in overtime. They turned the ball over twice on Patrick Mahomes. 2 interceptions. He used plus money for 1. And they sacked him 4 times. We're all clowning the Bengals because they gave up, 9 sacks last week? They got sacked 1 time. 1 time this week. Or yesterday. Let's not even say this week. And the Bengals got to Mahomes 4 times. Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson. These guys, I don't know why no one talks about them. Trey Hendrickson, I think, had 14.5 sacks this season. Like, these aren't just, like, out of nowhere scrubs. Like, these guys are good. And, we'll get to the Super Bowl preview, but I promise you no one will be talking about the defense. I know we're talking about totals. They're good, man. They are a underratedly good defense. And I think, personally, they were the difference in this game to me. I know the offense was big, but, I mean, we're talking about them turning the ball over at the line of scrimmage to give a short field for that game-tying touchdown. And the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion that tied the game. But this Bengals defense deserves love. They're my MVP yesterday. I know we want to give it to Joe Burrow, but 3 points in 3 quarters, including overtime. 3 points. I mean, that's unheard of. Unheard of against the Chiefs.
Dude, I'm with you. I this is a defense that nobody talks about. And it kind of bothered me last night. People are talking about the greatest collapse of all time in the playoffs. Like, that's not the case. It was an 11-point game at half. It was the exact same deficit that Cincinnati came back in Week 17. They were also down 11 points at half, and they came back and made some adjustments with their defense, and they made some plays. It's all anybody's going to talk about here today is Mahomes. And, I mean, let's be honest, though. He did look a little off. I mean, not just – the play call at the end of the first half is one thing. I mean, I think that's on them kind of being a little cocky. Why don't you just take the field goal and you're up 2 scores and you get the ball back? It's almost like I get it. This is the way they play. They're aggressive. They usually get those kind of plays. They usually find a way to get in the end zone there and to kind of like hammer down and, the foot is on the throat to really kind of drive it in. But it was a big turning point. It was a big stop for the Bengals. And then they made some adjustments in the second half. This is from Next Gen Stats. The Bengals dropped 8+ defenders in coverage on a season-high 35% of pass plays. Patrick Mahomes struggled against 8+ defenders in coverage, completing just 7 of 13 for 59 yards and a pick with 2 sacks. Negative 14.4 pass EPA, a career low. So, I mean, they dropped back. As I said off the top, they doubled both Kelsey and Hill, and their defense made plays, man.
Well, and I think also, and of course, in Eli Apple fashion, he's acting like he won that game for them. But the Bengals secondary as a whole doesn't appear to be very good because their corners are really bad, but their safeties are really good, like tremendous. I mean, Von Bell, Jesse Bates, they're good. And so you saw it in that overtime. He just threw that ball up towards, double coverage to Tyreek Hill. And maybe the corners aren't good enough to make the play themselves, but they were able to get hands on it and tip the ball up, and good things happen when you got, athletic safeties back there doing that. And you saw it with the Titans game too, right? I mean, Bates was involved almost immediately too. So I will say that I think we read into the cornerback situation too much and kind of overlooked their safeties. Those are other guys that need a lot of love on this Bengals defense and, deserve it. So I also want to shout out BJ Hill, former Giants great that we let go. He had the interception at the line. He also had a half sack. So, the Bengals, they're scrappy. The offense deserves a lot of love. I get that. But, I think they wouldn't be in this situation without the defense. I think this playoff, they're being severely overlooked. You talk about that Titans game where they started the game off with an interception in Tennessee, right? It matters. Defense wins championships. They say it. And I know right now we're geared towards the offense, but this game hit the under, right? 54.5, barely got there, but hit the under. And large in part because this defense really showed up, especially in that halftime stop, that goal line stance. I think you said it best. Yeah, the Chiefs got too cute, but a tremendous tackle at the goal line. And yeah, man, I mean, give them a taste of their own medicine. They thought they could walk over the Bengals, and that just wasn't the case.
Yeah, I just think it's such a remarkable story with this Bengals team. I mean, it's hard to see. It's tough, right? No, like nobody's ever talking about them. Even last week when we brought them up, we're like 15-1. Like, yeah, there's value if you wanted to sprinkle a little bit on them to win the Super Bowl, but they got to play the Chiefs. And just the fact that they were the worst team in the NFL and it wasn't even close 2 years ago. Yes, they brought in some free agents and they've done some things and. They got Burrow on this rookie contract and Chase and Higgins that they could maybe even improve the offensive line in the offseason through free agency or through the draft. But this was a team that was, dude, like odds makers had them 6.5, their win total, 6.5 and 120-1 to win the Super Bowl. And here they are. Mahomes' stats in the second half, 8 for 15, 55 yards, an interception, 0 for 3 and a pick in overtime as well. It's very strange to read off those numbers. But again, I agree. We're both giving credit to the Cincinnati Bengals, a defense that's been, not really talked about all year long. And I think a lot of people, myself included, thought Joe Burrow would be among the leaders in passing attempts again this season because the defense would be so bad, but that just wasn't the case. The defense created a lot of turnovers. They made plays happen. They were at one point leading the NFL in sacks. I think like 6 or 7 weeks into the season, they were getting pressure on the quarterback. And obviously, Jamar Chase was great, and I thought Joe Mixon was good yesterday too.
I also think a big factor from a football sense, and I saw a statistic somewhere, I don't know exactly what it was, but they were dropping 8 in coverage a lot, and they were really forcing Mahomes to make the smaller decisions, right? I think they wanted him to hit those smaller routes. If you notice, they had success early in the game by giving Jerick McKinnon those at the line of scrimmage plays and spreading him out and just getting the ball and letting these guys make plays yards after the catch. Towards the end of the game there, he got way too cute and tried to make a big play every time he touched the ball. And with how the Bengals were playing defense, they wanted him to do that. And I also think this rolls back to, that 49ers Super Bowl when the Chiefs beat them. They infamously talk about how Mahomes, after that in the press conference, talked about how he didn't really understand reading coverages. And I think Mahomes, as perfect as he's looked, showed he's human by how he kind of decided to just trust in his playmaking ability and his arm strength and him just being Mahomes to guide him there. But look at all the great quarterbacks. Take what the defense gives you. And I think that was the downfall for the Chiefs more than anything. I don't think they took what the Bengals were giving them. I think the Bengals wanted them to use all these weapons. And Mahomes was over here just looking to make big play after big play. And that's just not what was going to work yesterday. And I think that was apparent, from the Bengals side of things.
Did you see the tweet from KMBC? It's like Kansas City's breaking news and weather station. They have like 180,000 followers. They since deleted this tweet because I can only imagine the stuff that they got. But they tweeted like against all odds. Against all odds. Nobody thought that nobody thought that we would be here. Everybody counted us out. Like, guys, you were the Super Bowl favorites heading into the season. You were plus 500. Nobody thought this, my butt. Nobody thought. Like, I just thought that was a ridiculous tweet. And, there's some great replies. Against all odds, we were never supposed to be here. We were never meant to make it this far, as there's a drive deep to left by Castellanos. And that'll be a home run. Like, it's just like nonstop, like poking at that Twitter account. And since then they've straight up deleted that tweet. So, a couple storylines to see you guys talking about MVPs. We'll get into that. We're going to have a bit of a football conversation here. We'll get into maybe some Super Bowl MVPs. We got a couple weeks to talk about this, but maybe we'll get some early thoughts there on some things. But there's a lot of cool storylines again in the Super Bowl. Of course, you got Stafford in his first one, number 1 overall pick, and then Burrow. And then you have like Zach Taylor, who was on the coaching staff with Sean McVay just a couple years ago. I forget the doctor's name that did the knee like reconstructed Burrow's knee, the surgery. He's the head coach, or he's the head doctor for the Rams as well. Like there's a lot of like different kind of like storylines in there and things like that.
I, for one, love the storyline of Eminem performing at the halftime show and Stafford in the Super Bowl is the closest Detroit will ever get to a Super Bowl. And that's not a jab at Quan and Lions fans out there. I just think that's a fantastic joke. That's perfect. And I saw a lot of videos of like, Detroit Lions fans rooting on Stafford. And I think a lot of people always think that way, right? Like if you're, franchise quarterback, like from a Giants perspective, if Eli went somewhere else, like I don't know how Patriots fans did it with Brady, but like if Eli goes somewhere else and Peyton was somewhere else, where people root for these quarterbacks when they're gone, I think you have to, right? I think if you're a Lions fan, this is your Super Bowl, right? I mean, I think you're backing Stafford and hoping he gets one done. Like as a Giant fan, I'm rooting for Odell too, right? I want to see Odell get a ring naturally.
Sure. Yeah. No, yeah. I totally get that. Absolutely. Yeah. When I was younger, I mean, when Patrick Waugh left the Habs, he went to the Avs. Like, yeah, I mean, I want this guy to win a Stanley Cup. Like, you have your guys, you have soft spot for certain guys, and you want them to be successful. I can't imagine why any Lions fan, like, does Kyle Murray want Stafford to choke in the Super Bowl? I don't think so. I mean, he gave them some moments. Like, all those years that Detroit lost, I mean, it wasn't on Stafford. Let's be honest. Like, he did what he could do with those teams. So that's that game. Pretty remarkable stuff, I think. A really cool story again. Switch gears and talk about the other game for San Fran and LA. Man, at a moment there, it looked like this is just going to be another choke job by McVay and company and the Rams. I mean, they were down 10 points heading into the fourth quarter. Kittle just scored his first playoff touchdown ever. The defense was playing pretty strong. And there were some miscues by the offense, like some drops. Talk about Cup off the top. Another drop in the end zone, and then McVay with the two challenges were kind of
the mismanagements of the timeouts was the weirdest thing in that game. They had 0 timeouts going into the fourth quarter. He gets in his
head, man. He gets in his head. He just kind of. And did you see Mahomes? When you talk about the timeouts, no timeouts, like this is another thing with the Mahomes play at the end of the first half when he threw to Hill and they didn't get in. He tried to call timeout quickly. He was like this, like, dude, you don't have any timeouts. It's almost like they just weren't really thinking.
Someone should ask Chris Webber how not having timeouts works, and you decide to call one at the end of the game.
Timeout. No, you don't have any timeouts. What did you make of the? Is this more about Jimmy G and Shanahan again, another blown lead, or was this in your opinion about the Rams?
Well, I think for the Niners, the two takeaways for me, and I saw a tweet, and honestly, I hate like talking about this without giving credit to it, but it's something like, just look at what these teams' off seasons were. There is a reason why the 49ers traded to that number 3 pick to take Trey Lance. And then there's a reason why the Rams went all in to get Matthew Stafford, and it showed, right? And I think that's super apparent. And I think that factored in. And I think a lot of people, honestly, throughout the season thought at some point maybe Trey Lance was going to take over because Jimmy G is exactly who we thought he was, right? No one's surprised.
That's me. I thought that would happen.
Right. And it didn't happen. And obviously we're now going to think that's going to be the move for next year, right? Just the right of the course, and Trey Lance will take over. Jimmy G has showed his cards. So I think the quarterback play was apparent, but honestly, I was underwhelmed just by what the 49ers did. I know it was Debo or bust, and George Kittle did get his touchdown. I just think they should have taken some shots. I think if you were going to live or die by Jimmy G, at least go out kind of guns blazing, right? His interception wasn't even a real interception. I don't even know what that play was at the end of the game. It kind of came out the side of his hand. I have no idea what that was, but I would have liked to see some shots. Like I had, I had Juwan Jennings at 4-1. He scored 2 touchdowns for them. Maybe a Debo trick. Like I know they were up. But I think they were playing not to lose instead of, putting their foot on the gas and trying to get after it and put the Rams away. And they could have. And they dropped the interception. That's the other thing you didn't mention yet. That dropped interceptions going under the radar. That was huge swing and miss. Matthew Stafford closed his eyes and threw that up to Van Jefferson. That was bad.
There's about 10 minutes left in the game. I think they were down 3. It extended. That would have been a pick, and then he probably would have brought it up at least maybe to the Rams 40, maybe even.
And with no timeouts at that point in time in the game, right? I think there was maybe 6 minutes left. But it was a huge moment in the game. And then shortly after that, the Odell Beckham catch, and then the flag, the unnecessary hit, the 15 yards, kind of put him into a situation. But I mean, I think you nailed it. It's spot on analysis, man. It's Shanahan does not trust Jimmy Garoppolo, man. He just doesn't. Did you see how furious he was when Jimmy threw the ball to Debo and like set him up to get crushed? Like that pass, like he was furious on the sidelines and that. And if he had a guy like maybe if he had Trey Lance or a mobile quarterback,
maybe he's going for it at 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 at midfield. Like he didn't even, to me, like he did. He played a little scared.
I thought they were gonna. I thought that was the tie game situation in Week 18 all over again. McVay calls the timeout challenge, which made no sense, and then the offense comes out, and I was like, that's the decisions I'm talking about. I felt like the 49ers should have 100% went for it in that point in time. I'm right on board with you there.
Yeah, I thought that they should have taken some shots as well, but again, it's just and maybe it's just Shanahan, but Shanahan's got a couple blown leads now, in the playoffs. Of course, the Super Bowl stands out as a huge lead, a huge blown lead, right? When, with obviously he wasn't the head coach there, but the play caller there in Atlanta when they blew that one. And then the Super Bowl, they were up, double-digit scores, 6 minutes left, I think, against KC a couple years ago, and then this one too. So yeah, it's tough for the 49ers. They've been really good to us all year. They've been good to us as dogs. We were on them every single week here in the playoffs to cover.
Good teams win, great teams cover, right?
That's right, and they covered all year. I thought that was the turning point, but also like Aaron Donald, like you don't really see him on the sidelines amped up. He's like a quiet leader. But dude, tell me that those guys were not listening to him when he was like in the circle and pointing and yelling and pointing and yelling. And he was a big factor towards the end of that game when he got after Jimmy G, and then that ridiculous pass to just kind of throw it away. But
yeah, no, when Aaron Donald
offensively,
talks,
they couldn't move the ball. They couldn't run the ball.
You can see the play calling, though. Even they had a chance. They had a 2-minute drill lined up. Like the Rams scored with plenty of time. They had timeouts. Like that game wasn't all said and done. And just by the play calling on that, I think he had like 2 line of scrimmage passes. Like there was nothing to move the chains at all. And then it's like 3rd and forever. And we're surprised he got sacked and had to throw the ball away because it would have been 4th and like 25 from his end zone. It's like the play calling as a whole. I'm not trying to pin it just on Shanahan because definitely it was a collective, right? Like how is Cooper Kupp running open, and it's a good play designed by McVay. I get that. And an aggressiveness could go to Shanahan more than anything. I think if anyone's to blame, it's Jimmy G, but you can't point out one guy, but it is. So it's
it
is. It's Jimmy G. It's Jimmy G's fault. I think that's my opinion. This is my opinion.
Again, we don't want to be too hard on the guy, but it is what it is, right? It's something we said all year. Like we like this Niners team. We like the personnel. We love the head coaching. We like the play calling. We love Debo, like Ayuk. We still believed in Ayuk. Remember when Trent Sherfield was the guy in the first couple weeks? We still liked Ayuk as a player. We like Kittle. Elijah Mitchell had a great season. Defense, so like they had a lot of great pieces this year, but the one reason I think even people that back the Niners were a little hesitant about Jimmy G at the end of the day.
Super Bowl all over again. It's the Super Bowl all over again. No one wants to be the one to be like, well, he did miss a couple guys. Oh, well, this is. So I mean, there wasn't anything apparent that like sticks out like the Super Bowl when he missed Sanders, but there were a few missed throws over the middle of the field there. But man, I think the Niners are in good shape, though. Well, let's put it that way. I think they're going to be fine as long as Trey Lance turns out to be the guy, right? As long as they have faith in Trey Lance and they're able to get the most out of him. They took him high enough and invested him in enough. So I wonder where Jimmy G is going to go, though, because I think he's serviceable. I think he's an NFL quarterback. I just don't think he could. He's a winner. He's a winner. He's kind of like he's like a different version of like Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater, right? Like you can't really make sense of it. But wherever he goes, he wins games. Like it is what it is. And so something has to be said about that.
I mean, Pittsburgh just comes to mind because of Big Ben, but like they got weapons that need the football too, and the offensive line is not all that great, right? No. So I don't know if that's a move the Steelers want to make, but we'll talk about that. Let's talk about this game here a little bit. Like early leans with it. So Cincinnati opens up as 4-point underdogs here. As we talked about, really, I mean, you can kind of flip them, quote unquote. The home team is Cincinnati, despite this game being played in Los Angeles. The total at 49.5, so it has dropped just a little bit. I do have a lean to the under, despite, just the firepower that both of these teams have offensively. But yeah, the Bengals here as 4-point dogs, man, I kind of have that lean. I like this team. Like they just find a way to hang around. We talked about their defense. We even talked about McPherson. Like that kid's got, the stones of this guy, right? He's just been perfect in the playoffs. He was 8 for 8. Was he 3 for 3 yesterday? Best 5th round pick of all time. I don't know, man. Maybe teams will be lining up to draft kickers next year in the 5th and 6th round. But this guy is good to go. I have a Bengals fan who is showing me kicks that he'd made from like the 65, 70-yard line in practice. Like, I just kept saying when they got the ball in overtime and they just kept running and running, I'm like, guys, it's McPherson time. The guy can hit from midfield. Like, just let it go here. Like, just give him the ball before it's too late. But what's your initial thoughts here on this matchup?
So let's not forget the last time the Rams were in a Super Bowl, there was a combined 16 points scored. So I think maybe I'm still wounded from that uneventful Super Bowl that I'm definitely leaning under here, especially because I just talked up the Bengals defense. I'm done betting against Joe Burrow. I mean, I was able to cash on them to win the AFC 7-1, so I couldn't be as invested in them yesterday because I felt like I was already invested in that bet, so I was in a good spot. I wish I got down more, but this guy, I think now is like 7-0 in must-win games, right? Like winning you're in situations since college. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable.
He's never lost a playoff game, college or NFL.
And I was talking to a good buddy of mine. He's a big gambling guy, and it was more of a general statement, but it's like, when's the next time you're going to see Joe Burrow as an over a touchdown underdog again, right? Is it ever going to happen again, do you think? Like even on the road? Because yesterday it opened 7.5, right? Probably closed 7, but that's the thing. This is at 4, so right, you got to consider it a little bit. You're getting over a field goal. So if you like the Bengals, I love that play. I think the 4 is a great security blanket, especially because the Rams can't play in anything other than field goal games. But just in terms of the Bengals, I think it's so interesting, like what this is going to do to set them moving forward. Kind of like where the Chiefs are always getting these massive spreads now because of all the success they've had. Like when's the next time we're going to have a decent number to play the Bengals on? Like this may be the last one. This may be the last game. If they win it all, it'll definitely be the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, it may be. There's so many moving pieces. I mean, Brandon's talking about McPherson 2 field goals away from breaking the record. Most field goals made in a single play. He probably does it too. Like
Andrew,
Zach Taylor's one of those coaches that
he's saying McPherson Super Bowl MVP. That's insane. These guys are getting crazy. I kind of love it too.
I mean, let's take an early peek. Let's take an early look here at I'm looking at DraftKings here. NFL awards, Super Bowl MVP. Stafford's favorite at -105. Burrow's at +220. So like typically quarterbacks do win this award. We've seen other players win it before on big showings, but so if you do think Cincinnati is going to win this game, I mean +220 there. Cooper Kupp is 650. Aaron Donald is 18-1. Odell Beckham Jr. is 20-1. How about Odell Beckham Jr.? It's the 3rd straight playoff game where we've taken the over on the show in his catches and his receiving yard prop. He was +140 yesterday for 5 grabs. I think he added at half. I mean, he's been a big part of this offense. We've talked about it so much. I like that as a long shot. I know that it's going to be Cup, but we're seeing Beckham just trend up in this offense week in and week out. We said off the top of the show, his first 100-yard game in 33 games. Still has it, man. That guy still has phenomenal hands, and he's a great
What is it?
runner.
You said Aaron Donald at 18-1. Where's Von Miller at? I'm just curious his line.
Von Miller is, oh my goodness. Let me do the old search and find. 50-1.
So he was at 50-1? So he's at 60-1 last week, so that's not that bad. So anyone who followed, especially Dog Day Afternoon and a lot of stuff we were doing with Jill's, we were talking early previews at the Super Bowl MVP, and we kind of built it around, and I put my bet in at 60-1 on Von Miller last week already, but it's more that, it's got to be narrative-driven with the defense, and that was his kind of pushback on it. But I do think this is the ideal matchup for either Aaron Donald or Von Miller to take this, this trophy home, because nine sacks against Tennessee, right? And I know I just gassed them up and said they played better. They are who we thought they were. If they go off, I mean, one of those guys could end up grabbing this. And even at 18-1, Aaron Donald's really good value. And you saw the leadership he showed on the sideline. I think you can make a case more on Aaron Donald now. And I'm glad I didn't drop too much because I didn't bet him at 25-1. I actually don't mind it still at 18-1. I think there's enough behind that to think that he could end up taking that trophy home. I think someone on the defense has a really good shot with how this line is.
So you can get Von Miller at PointsBet at 60-1. FanDuel, DK, BetMGM 50-1. Unibet has him at 33-1. I think that's at 50-1, a little sprinkle. I think Donald at 18-1 is interesting. Kupp at 650 is pretty phenomenal. Like if that guy has a game like he did yesterday, and the game that he's had 13 times this year, if he has over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, is he not the MVP? Say Stafford only throws 2 touchdowns and he has an okay day, but Kupp has 150 yards and 2 scores. He's probably the MVP at 650. I like that one quite a bit. Like
that's the thing that drives me crazy.
Than Stafford at -105.
Well, it drives me crazy that Cup had the day he had yesterday, and they immediately go to the podium and talk to Stafford, which they should. But like, I see what you're saying.
But
That would drive me up a
yes.
wall at plus 650. It's a great bet. It's just like how these things are driven. It drives you up a wall. It'll drive you mad just thinking about it, right? Because you know yourself, for some reason, they'll give the nod to Stafford more. He'd have to do something insane, which he does normally.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but
you'd have
again,
to
Cup
stand
is
out.
open. The guy's open all the time, man. Like, you got to give him some credit. Like, Stafford makes some nice throws, and he made a lot of great throws in the fourth quarter. I thought when his team was down 10 points, he made a lot of really good throws with confidence. Like, his passing was certainly on point. And again, a couple bad drops too, I thought, by the Rams. Like, I thought San Fran was lucky to be in that game, to be honest with you. They were hanging around. They weren't getting any first drives. They weren't able to run the rock at all with Elijah Mitchell. It had a nice screen pass to Debo. Credit on Debo to take that to the house. But other than that, like, the offense is pretty stalled. They just didn't do anything. But a couple things. I think Beckham is worth a shot at 20-1. I think Chase at 21. I also think Higgins at 40-1 is just maybe worth a little sprinkle if he could have a monster day. But I think if he has a monster day, it's probably Joe Burrow who ends up having that huge game. If Higgins is able to have one, you feel like Chase is in there. So there's a couple interesting Super Bowl odds, but I think, Von Miller and Donald, those are pretty good sprinkles, man, because of the offensive line.
Well, Gilden's right in the chat. We did think his odds would drop more, 100%, right? From 60 to 50. Like, I thought maybe there'd be a steeper drop, but he didn't really do anything last night, so I guess I understand that. I did want to note, though, I mean, it'd probably take, 3 touchdowns from Cup? The guy has 11 touchdowns in the last 9 games. There's only one game he hasn't scored a touchdown. Like, that's insane. He scored 2 twice. Like, I don't know what it would take. I don't know what it'll take. He's got to score the game winner, probably, and just, like, over 100, 10 receptions. Like, he's got to stuff the stat sheet and probably score the game winner. Like, I want him to win it. I want him to get to flowers. If not the real MVP, that MVP, right? One or the other.
McPherson is jokes. I mean, Gilden at 150-1, of course, would bring that up. I mean, at 150-1, I mean, chuck a buck on it, whatever. Like, could you imagine the world? Like, it would just freak out if McPherson was the MVP. 12 for 12, 12 for 12 field goals in the playoffs, including 2 game winners. The 12 field goals are the most made in a single postseason without a miss by any player. That is from Ari Miorev of My Sports Update on the Twitter machine. I don't know how many walk-offs he has, but I can think of like 3 or 4 in the regular season, and then here on the playoffs. I have to double check that.
I also think he set the playoff field goal record. Maybe the chat could clear this up. Yeah, there's no chance, probably, unless he ends up doing what they did with the Titans and the offense scores no touchdowns and they somehow kick 6 field goals for the win, and they win 18-17, right? But I think he broke. I think he had 12. That was his 12th field goal. 12th, for the win yesterday,
and all perfect. Like, he hasn't missed one. I think that that's the record, right there.
Yeah.
Like, just that many kicks without missing one. Before we move on from this game, one more thing. Did you see the McPherson? Those videos of him? They're surfacing now, but him with the Gators on the Gators field when he kicked from I think he was at maybe the 30, 35, and there was a Gatorade bottle on the goalpost taped, and the cap was just a little loose, and he kicks the cap off with the football.
This guy's a stud.
Dude,
I haven't seen that.
Dude is accurate, man. He is. I'm telling you. The only reason I know this much about him is because I have a buddy who's a Bengals fan, and it's all he talked about. This is his excitement heading in. Obviously Chase, but also, man, I really think the Bengals got themselves a good kicker. He's the next Tucker, yeah. And he does look like that. All right.
Kicker.
Anything else you want to get to before we break? We got some NHL and NBA to wrap up the show.
Yeah. Jill's asked me last week on Dog Day Afternoon, if I was worried about the Bills' shelf life, if that was their window. And I initially answered and said, I don't think so, because, they're still in the AFC East, and I think Josh Allen's still the best quarterback there, so on and so forth. I am a little worried about him, though. Now, I mean, if we're able to get Dorsey as our OC over in New York, the Buffalo Bills 2.0, I got no problem with it. As a Giant fan. It's better than what we've been doing, but Dable looks like the man. I don't think it was all him, but I think, Ken Dorsey was a big part of Josh Allen coming too. And if Buffalo's fighting hard to keep him there right now, I think that's a little, if you're not following those two teams, it's under the radar drama because they want him to stay there for Allen. But if somehow he's able to leave and come to New York, I think the Bills, like we love the Bills, but I think they'll have a different identity. I think it'll still be Josh Allen, but it matters. Coaching matters. And so if you're going to take the two guys who have tutored him up, you know, I'm hyped for the Giants, but it actually just brings my antennas up for the Buffalo Bills. I think it's an interesting storyline to follow, especially in terms of like guys with fantasy and so on and so forth. I'm curious to see what they're going to do offensively if Dorsey leaves. I don't even know who their offensive coordinator would then become. So something to follow.
It may be internal hire. I'm not sure, but yeah, it certainly is something to monitor and keep in mind. Jake Sealy texted me when the hiring happened with Dable, and he just said, I hope it wasn't all Josh Allen. That's all he said. Like, I hope it wasn't just all Josh Allen who looked good, that it was some of the play calling. And it is, man. You're right. Coaching does certainly matter. I had a buddy that say, Kenny Golladay through the roof from drafting this guy next year everywhere. I think Kadarius Toney is the guy. Like
Tony.
Right? We could get really excited about Toney and having an offensive mind with the Giants. What have we said over the past 2 years? Like, at all these moving pieces, all these nice, solid upside players, but the play calling has just been so vanilla and not creative at all. And then now they got a guy in there. Do you have Andy, I agree with that comment. Burrow gets MVP over Chase, Cup over Stafford. I do agree with that. Also, anything to say about McDaniels? I mean, this guy's a head coach again. I wasn't overly impressed with his time in Denver, but, you know, he seems to be he's definitely a good offensive mind. And, you know, interesting choice, I think, to go to Las Vegas.
I think you made the comment of comments. Let's see it get done first, right? I think my buddy who's a Raiders fan said the same thing, right? It's until I see him on the podium, I'm not going to say anything yet because it's how Frank Reich ended up in Indianapolis. I think, you know, I always think of him in Denver, and I forgot that whole thing with the Colts happened. So let's see it get done. I do think it's random because I didn't really hear his name out, you know, being questioned for head coaching positions, and like you just have Brian Flores out there floating around. So I don't really know what's going on with a lot of these coaching hires. I'm just glad the Giants got the offensive guy out there, and we desperately needed it. McDaniels is weird, and until it's done, I don't really have a comment. But the Raiders are going to Raider, so I mean, whatever. They were a playoff team.
Uzomah out. And probably Higbee too. I don't know. I got 2 weeks here. The Uzomah injury looked significant. I mean, he was in tears. He got carted off. I'm not really sure about
Higbee. They said knee sprain. It looked like a knee sprain.
So maybe he could be back and he could play. But I do believe Tyler Boyd will be a little sneaky. Yeah, they're going to have to try to protect, get the ball out quick. But, you know, Burrow's been the best quarterback in the NFL against the blitz as well. So no dangle bet Selly today. We will get after it tomorrow with Eric Young, but I got some NHL picks in here next. We'll say goodbye to Tino, and then we'll bring him back at the end of the show to dive into some NBA stuff. So keep her locked. Some hockey talk here next on Mean Streets. A handful of games on the ice here tonight in the NHL. Eric Young and I will be back tomorrow. Dangle Badselli will cover all the games on Tuesday. It's a short week in the NHL with the All-Star break happening here this weekend. So I got some shot props, some picks, and some goal scorers for you. But let's start here with Leon Draisaitl of the Edmonton Oilers. I like this guy here tonight to have a night. You can get 4 shots at plus 100. A 2-point night would be plus 130. The Edmonton Oilers, I do believe, are going to go on a bit of a run here. And it's not strictly because of Vander Kane, but the addition of Vander Kane has given them some balance up and down their lineup. You know, on the third line, they got Hyman playing with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. They had a big day on Saturday against the Canadiens. And then Leon Draisaitl's on a bit of a run here. The reason I like his shot attempts, or his shots rather, I mean, he has 20 shots on goal in his last 3 games. He also has 5 goals in his last 4 contests. The Senators rank 5th in shot attempts allowed at 5 and 5 per 60 over the last 2 months. That's from Natural Stat Trick. And they're going to be without two key forwards tonight in Drake Batherson and Josh Norris. So I just noticed Leon Draisaitl, maybe it was the talk at, in the press conference about him being pissy and a reporter calling him pissy, or maybe it's just because he's a really good player and he's a good matchup here. So I like him to have a 2-point night. And I like him to have 4 shots here tonight. So that's my guy I'm starting with is Leon Draisaitl. Over to some other shot props that I like inside that same game. I like Brady Tkachuk at 3.5. I think he's interesting at plus money. Barkov's plus money and Patrick Kane you can also get at plus money. For Barkov, at least 4 shots now in 6 straight games over the last month at 5.5 per 60. Again, from Natural Stat Trick, the Columbus Blue Jackets rank 5th in shot attempts allowed and 1st in shots on goal allowed. They're also 1st in expected goals against and 2nd in goals against. So they played last night. They beat up on the Canadiens, surprise, surprise, but now they got a tough spot here against the Florida Panthers. So taking the over 3.5 shots at plus 110 for Barkov. For Patrick Kane, I also like DeBrincat. I think DeBrincat is a pretty good play to put into parlays, but I think if you're looking for a single for Patrick Kane at plus 100, he put 10 pucks on net in his last game, and he's had at least 4 shots on goal in 6 of his past 8 games. For Brady Tkachuk, I mentioned no Norris, no Drake Batherson. I like Thomas Chabot. Thomas Chabot, I think, is another good play at minus 130 over at Caesars. He's cleared 2.5 shots in 7 of his past 8 games, but Brady Tkachuk is averaging 21 minutes per game over his last 3 games. More ice time with those 2 forwards. Sideline, we've seen over the past couple games, Brady Tkachuk flirting with 23, 24 minutes. His last game, he had 7 shots. The game before that, he had 3. The game before that, he had 12 shots on net. So this guy has 23 shots on goal in his last 3 games. You get him at plus 115. And he had 9 shots on January 20th against the Pittsburgh Penguins. You also see Dylan Larkin and Trevor Zegras on here. Trevor Zegras has just been shooting a little bit more. I like Troy Terry to score. We'll get into him in a second. But for Trevor Zegras, 9 shots in his last 2 games, 5 and 4. And then Dylan Larkin's got 5 shots in each of his last 2 games. And the Ducks rank 4th in shot attempts and shots allowed at 5.5 per 60 over the last month of the season. Tino, keep things going here for us. What is next? Let's go with some picks. So the Edmonton Oilers to win in 60 is minus 130, but I think they win on the puck line here at plus 125. And then I got the Ducks here at minus 106. The Ducks have just been playing really good. They beat Tampa Bay. They hung around with Colorado. They beat the Avs. They hung around with the Leafs. They beat up on the Canadiens, of course. But there was also another game in there that they looked pretty good on home ice. What was it? Oh, it was Boston. They beat Tampa. They beat Boston. They lost to the Leafs 4-3. They beat the Habs, and then they beat the Senators. And now a matchup here against Detroit, who just blew a 2-goal lead with a couple minutes left the other day against the Leafs. The Red Wings have some issues. As long as it's John Gibson and net between the pipes, I'm going to back this Ducks team no matter where they play, really. On the road, basically, even money here. I like them. Then you can put in the parlay, Edmonton and Toronto, both to win in 60. The Leafs a matchup against the Devils. I think we'll see some goals in that game as well. The Leafs are back to playing overs. At the start of the season, they were playing unders because they were getting really good goaltending from Jack Campbell. Now, I still think Jack Campbell's a pretty good goalie, but he's kind of come down to earth a little bit. He's letting in a lot of goals. This is a back-to-back. They also play the Devils tomorrow night. We could see Mrazek. Mrazek played over the weekend. I do expect Jack Campbell, but Campbell's allowed 3-5 goals here and there. Over the month of January, he hasn't been the same goalie that he was certainly in October and November. So I do believe we'll see some offense in that game. And then Vancouver and Chicago, I have a lot of respect for Thatcher Demko, but the Canucks have loaded up that top line. I like it. Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, JT Miller on that top line. We know that DeBrincat and Kane can score a couple goals as well, so I'm taking the over 5.5. Am the artist. Yes, that's from the same game. I would go with Larkin. I think Larkin is the better play for 2.5 shots. You can't parlay these guys unless you play over at Prize Picks. You can pick both of these guys. You can pick guys from the same game. And you have some goal scorers there, Tino. Do you have that one handy? So let's wrap up here with some goal scorers. Carter Verhaeghe against the Blue Jackets. I mentioned the Blue Jackets inside the top 5 and all those categories that I look at. Shot attempts allowed, shots, scoring chances. Number 1 in goals against, expected goals against, number 2. So a good spot here for Verhaeghe playing on that top line, plus 225. Evander Kane, we hit this over the weekend. He actually scored the first goal that Edmonton scored against the Habs on Saturday. It was much better odds. I think it was plus 205. He's still plus 155 for an assist, which is something that I really do like, but plus 186 playing with Connor McDavid, getting some power play time. I thought he looked okay in his first game. He definitely looked like a guy that hadn't played hockey yet this year. He's a little slow moving. It's going to take some time, but when you play with a guy like McDavid who just wants to set him up, and McDavid was looking for him the entire game, plus 186 against the leaky Senators. I do like Troy Terry to score. I like Zegras, the shots, but I like where Terry's on that line with Raquel and Getzlaf. So I think I've seen Zegras shoot a little bit more lately, but Terry's getting set up by Mr. Setup Man himself in Riot Getzlaf. Brock Besser, I mentioned on the top of the line there. He's been a guy that we've been going to for shot props. We've really seen a change in his game since Bruce Boudreau. And then Michael Bunting, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm chasing here. He had a hat trick over the weekend, but he's playing on the first line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. They shuffled their lines around halfway through that game against Detroit over the weekend. And Michael Bunting, I mean, say what you want. Last year, his shooting percentage was through the roof. This year, same sort of deal. He's just a goal scorer, man. The guy scores goals, and a lot of players in the NHL are very streaky. Will he score a hat trick again? Probably not. But when you play with Matthews and you play with Marner, you're going to have opportunities to score. And I think at plus 260, just like Carter Verhaeghe playing on that top line with Barkov, there's going to be an opportunity for these guys to put the puck in the net. So that's it from an NHL perspective. Tino's in here next again, and we will wrap up the show with a little NBA talk. Keep her locked. All right, welcome back one final time. I am the artist asking for Mean Streets Monday to Sunday. I don't know if we can make that happen. We are going to talk some golf this week on Wednesday. Things are going to get a little different here on Mean Streets. With less football talk, we got to get into the college basketball. March Madness, Tino, is right around the corner, right? We got to start getting into that. And Pat Mayo is going to join us on Wednesday to talk a little PGA. I do wish that Dangle Betselli was Monday to Friday, but again, what would we talk about on Mean Streets? We have to have a little bit of NHL talk here. So we do appreciate the support, though, guys. Tino, a lot of action in the NBA. Where are you starting?
So, well, I was going to note on your March Madness comment, it's already started. I lost out on a 10-leg parlay this weekend on the Baylor upset. Money line.
Yeah.
Just needed a money line. Brutal. Probably the only minus 250 I had, too. So that was gut-wrenching, but I wasn't the only one. I know someone had – luckily, I made it back. I was on Kentucky, but I know someone who had a similar thing, and they took Kansas at home. So, right, home court matters until it doesn't in college basketball. Luckily, I'm not going to go there right now. I'll save that for the guys in the chat. And I'm going to talk with my best bet. It's definitely moved in my direction since last night, and I think it's because of the news of Joel Embiid reportedly being out. I don't take any of this seriously until I see them on or off the court, and everything in the NBA is like a grain of salt until an hour before. So the Grizzlies opened up as a 3.5-point dog last night. That shouldn't have been the case either way. I think it should have been set and opened where it is now. I know the Sixers tend to be okay at home. The Grizzlies are amazing on the road, 16-8. I still think that's good enough for either the third or the second best record in the NBA. I think it's now the second because the Nets lost again. The line moved all the way from 3.5 to 3.5, so I assume the Joel Embiid news is good. This still isn't high enough. Embiid has been the entire Sixers team. This is my best bet. This is my favorite bet. They blew out the Sixers by 30 the last time they played it, almost 40. I love the Grizzlies today. I love them even if Embiid was playing. I love them even more that he's not, and I don't know why this line is still that low. If Embiid's not there, I think Tobias Harris can only do so much. Then we're going to move on, and we're going to take – this is a team that I feel good about them today. They've been playing a lot better. Jason Tatum is a guy who has not been talked up enough in the NBA this season. He's been going absolutely off as of late. They return home. They've been way better at home, and they're going to take on the Miami Heat, who they handled defensively earlier this season. Lines at 4.5. That has moved up and moved against us. I got it at 3.5, I think, last night and this morning. So that's something that hasn't exactly worked in our direction. But, I mean, it's leaning towards where we're leaning, which is good. But the Heat are a good team against the spread. So I don't necessarily love taking them at 2 possessions here because the Heat are a team that have also won 3 out of the last 5 and played the Raptors relatively close. It was a triple overtime 4-point loss in the last time out. So I don't know. I love this game a lot more. It's still one of my favorite plays. I might play it safe on the money line, but it seems like a lot of the guys that they on the Heat are out. Again, if they are, this is a great number to get in on now. Like Butler's day-to-day. Lowry looks like he's out. So, like, if you want to take the shot now, definitely, but still follow the advice we've always given you guys. Wait to bet NBA sometimes. It hurts in terms of value, right? I got the Grizzlies as a dog, and then it hurts sometimes, but it's not as significant. So I'd rather get the sure news and the sure winner than not have it at all. Then we're going to take the Cavaliers at home. This is something I'm going to go with as well on the injury news. This line isn't high enough. The Cavs are great at home. They're great against the spread. It's at 7.5. I think they win by 8 against the Pelicans, who did beat them earlier this season, but they're reportedly without Jonas Valanciunas and Brandon Ingram today, and Josh Hart's like day-to-day. If they don't have those two guys, I don't know where the scoring is going to come from for the Pelicans. Right. The Cavs should beat them by this number with those guys playing at full strength. And so if they're not there, I know they just killed Andrew, who was talking and telling us last night on a back-to-back here that they lost to the Pistons in Detroit last night. It was Detroit's day yesterday. What could I say, right? With Matthew Stafford in the air. So the Cavs return home. That was on the road. They return home where they handled the Bucks a couple games ago. Let's not forget that. And I mean handled the Bucks. They won by 16 there. I think it's more towards that side of things, and the Pelicans, who lost 3 in a row, continue to lose. And I like the Cavs here at home, who have been incredible against the spread. So those are my 3.
I dig it. Yeah. Memphis 150 I put in earlier, but I mean, 3.5 is something that I feel like they can cover as well. And out of nowhere, Joel Embiid is now favored to win the MVP, right? I mean, we kind of dropped the ball. I don't think he will. He's been really good, but the guy was like 35-1 just like last week or a week and a half ago. Like he has been like just crazy. I'm seeing him now 2-1. Joker's 3-1. Do we get behind on the way out here? Do we get behind a Klay Thompson over 2.5 threes at minus 130? Klay Thompson over 2.5 threes up against the Rockets?
I'd like to say yes. He was off until the fourth quarter against Brooklyn the other night. And Steph.
He's shown rust. There's definitely been some rust in his game.
It's weird though because I feel like he's more locked down from the inside. Like I think inside 3, he's money right now. And then for some reason, as soon as he steps behind that 3-point. He was clutch against the Nets, but he hit an elbow jumper. Like, that's his spot right now. I don't know. I say yes, but if it was plus money, I would love it more. It's just not that high enough, right? Like we saw the other night.
Minus 130 is tough.
If he hits over, he's going to crush it is the thing, right? So I'd almost try to find the number somewhere else in positive odds. Take 3.5. What'd you say? Is that 2.5 or 3.5?
Yeah, it's 2.5 everywhere. FanDuel's got him minus 130. Yeah. DraftKings minus 140. BetMGM minus 140.
Minus 130 is tough. But yeah, I think if he hits it, he crushes it is the thing. That's the only advice I would say. I would just shop that number and try to get it better, which isn't necessarily possible. So, but they're playing the Rockets, so
he only had 2 threes against your Nets. He had 5 against Minnesota. He had 3 against Dallas. He had 0 against Indy, 3 against Detroit, 3 against Meaney. So he has cleared this 1, 2, 3, 4 of his past 6. But like you said, it's not plus money. Maybe you wait this out. Maybe you can get a 3.5 plus money. Maybe worth your time. All right, guys. Anything else? Tino?
No.
I didn't totally rush you, but we're out of here. That's it. We'll be back tomorrow. We will dive into, again, the Super Bowl. We'll have some different guests on this show over the next couple of weeks. Got to get some different takes on the Super Bowl matchup and a whole lot of NHL on the slate tomorrow as well. So appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.